Now on to some contemporary sociological theories of crime. And I'll begin with Travis Hershey's social bond theory that he developed in 1969, or that's when his book on social control emerged. And he essentially said that there were 4 things that had to happen, or that could happen, that would influence why somebody would not engage in crime. So this was a bit of a revolutionary perspective at the time, because Hershey was trying to explain why crime did not occur. And while it might have seemed revolutionary at the time, it was called revolutionary at the time, if we think back to Freud was actually talking about developmental stages or pathways that people had to go through to not engage in problematic behavior. He wasn't necessarily talking about crime, but Hershey's social bond theory is kind of in the same vein as Freud's earlier psychodynamic theory, except Hershey wasn't doing cocaine, as far as I know. The reason why I'm pretty sure that Hershey was not doing cocaine is because Hershey was raised in Utah with a very large Mormon community. And one of the things that's well known about Mormon communities is low levels of antisocial and criminal behavior. So it really made sense that Hershey was taking his experiences in this community and trying to look at, okay, why did I not engage in crime when I was a kid? Hershey thought about 4 ways that people bond: through attachment, commitment, involvement, and belief. So let's talk about what these 4 things mean. Attachment, according to Hershey, refers to having bonds to other people. Very importantly, it's not like social learning theory where bonds to delinquent individuals could increase risk of offending. Hershey actually didn't talk about whether the type of person that you were bonded to mattered. Instead, Hershey said that any attachment will do. So keep this in mind. In terms of the commitment aspect, what Hershey was referring to here was that individuals were wrapped up in different social activities. Maybe they were playing hockey after school, maybe they were in drama club, whatever they were doing, they had some social commitment, and they didn't want to engage in criminal behavior because it might jeopardize their ability to continue to participate in that social role as, hockey, football, whatever. Here's where students can sometimes get tripped up. Commitment and involvement sound very similar. Involvement is all about time. Involvement bond says that if an individual is wrapped up in social activities, they will simply lack the opportunity or the time to go out and engage in criminal behavior. They've got their early morning hockey practice, and then they have to go to school, and then they've got friends that they hang out with to do homework with, and then they're home for dinner, and then they're watching TV with their parents, where they're doing something where they're constantly engaged in activities that simply do not give them an opportunity to go out and engage in criminal behavior. The last bond is belief, which basically describes adherence to conventional social norms, the principles of religion, different social expectations. So similar to the conformist when we're talking about modes of adaptation described by Merton. What I want you to keep in mind, the reason why I told you the background of Hershey and his history living in communities that were traditionally comprised of a large proportion of Mormon persons, is that perhaps this might have given him a different perspective on what criminal behavior is like. That's maybe why he did not specify that attachment to others had to be pro-social rather than antisocial. He came from an area where there wasn't a lot of diversity. And so maybe he was not exposed to, for example, the youth that's growing up in a crime-ridden neighborhood that doesn't have a lot of social supports. Maybe the individuals that this person is attached to are involved in criminal behavior. Maybe within this subculture, the beliefs within their neighborhood are that crime is okay, that there are different techniques of neutralization that you can use to justify why it's okay to be involved in crime. Maybe the belief in this community is that you should be an innovator rather than a conformist. And so Hershey's theory was very, very valuable, but ultimately I think it neglected some pretty key aspects of life because he was looking where crime did not occur and not looking at where crime did occur. Hershey himself actually abandoned his social bond theory, and in 1990, Gottfredson and Hershey, so Michael Gottfredson and Travis Hershey, developed what's called the general theory of crime. And this theory was like a rap diss track. It took aim at everybody. It was saying like, this theory is wrong, that theory is wrong, longitudinal research sucks, criminal career research sucks. Everybody is wrong, we're the only people that are right. Gottfredson and Hershey's general theory of crime made one major assertion. They said that low self-control causes all crime all the time. That means low self-control causes property offending. Low self-control is the reason why the adolescent offends and why the adult offends. Low self-control causes violent offending, causes white-collar crime, causes drug trafficking. What is low self-control? There are a few different components to this construct. This includes things like being sensation-seeking, having a preference for immediate gratification, preferring short-term versus long-term goals, preferring to be physical rather than verbal in a person's communication, being very impulsive. These were all elements of low self-control. How does low self-control develop? Well, three things have to happen so that low self-control does not develop. Before the age of about 8 to 10, according to Gottfredson and Hershey, different parenting approaches have to occur. First things first, parents have to be able to be around to monitor their child. They have to be present. Second, they have to be able to recognize when their child is engaging in antisocial behavior or inappropriate behavior. Third, the parent needs to be able to appropriately respond to that child's behavior. So if little Johnny is hitting his sister over the head with a dump truck, the parent has to be there to see it. The parent has to recognize that this is not okay behavior, and has to respond to Johnny in a way that's going to help Johnny learn that that behavior is wrong and to not do it again. So the parent can't simply smack Johnny over the head to teach him a lesson. The parent has to use one of those like authoritative parenting strategies where they explain to Johnny why they're being punished and why the behavior they engaged in was wrong. According to Gottfredson and Hershey, if these three things did not happen before about ages 8 to 10, then this individual would have low self-control for the rest of their life. So they would engage in criminal and analogous behavior for the rest of their life. So not just criminal behavior, but like impulsive behavior, overeating, drug use, alcohol use, binge eating, didn't really matter. These sort of impulsive acts would be present basically throughout the life course. But Gottfredson and Hershey said that eventually kids would stop offending because as they entered adulthood, they would experience burnout. Like they would have jobs still and they would become exhausted and not really have that opportunity to engage in criminal behavior because they'd be worn down. They referred to it as the inexorable effect of aging, that age for everybody basically wears them down, and I can kind of relate to this now. What's interesting about Gottfredson and Hershey's perspective is that they also said that longitudinal research was entirely unnecessary and wasteful, and so I took this personally because I do longitudinal research. And here's the thing, Gottfredson and Hershey, in all of these assertions they made, not once did they actually present empirical data to support their perspective. They basically said that all of criminology was wrong, that low self-control causes all crime all the time, and that's the end of it. So a lot of people didn't really like Gottfredson and Hershey and kind of could consider them like trolls for basically saying all of these things and then just ghosting and ignoring everybody. But I think their contribution was so valuable to criminology. And it's valuable for two reasons. First, low self-control is really important to offending. Now, empirical studies have shown that among youth with low self-control, those who have low self-control are more likely to offend, but it doesn't explain all crime all the time. It accounts for about 30% of variation in criminal behavior. So Gottfredson and Hershey were wrong to say that it causes all crime all the time, but at least now criminologists know that low self-control matters and we need to pay attention to it. What Gottfredson and Hershey also did was force criminologists to take a step back and say, okay, we need to actually test whether other theoretical perspectives do matter? Does longitudinal research actually matter? Does other risk factors other than low self-control actually matter? And the answer to all these questions is yes, but at least Gottfried and Hershey kind of put pressure on researchers to go out and empirically demonstrate that this was true.